Welcome to Culture 8 podcast brought to you by Izini, your trusted partner in building thriving workplace cultures. Here we explore the intricate and dynamic world of organizational culture, uncovering insights and strategies to help leaders and their teams foster environments where people and businesses can grow together. Bringing you another special episode of Culture 8 podcast, we are talking with Sid Mookerji, partner at Silicon Road. Welcome, Sid, and it's an absolute honor to host you today.
Thank you.
So, what is it that you're working on today? I know you're a partner at Silicon Road. Tell us what's going on.
Yeah, sure. I'm involved in a few projects. So one being the managing partner and founder of Silicon Road. So we are a family of venture funds. We currently have $100 million or so under management. We just launched a third fund as well, and we invest in early stage tech companies that are transforming the retail, e-commerce, and CPG industries. That's one part of what I do. And then we also have a pretty large size family foundation through which we are supporting a lot of local schools such as Georgia Tech, Kennesaw State, and so on, as well as BITS Pilani in India, which is my alma mater. Also supporting some social causes such as things which are in support of women and children through the Seva International Organization. So there's a bunch of different things there. And then I also have a family office which actually, for example, owns some real estate. The building I'm sitting in Midtown Atlanta belongs to the family office, and other public market investments and so on. So, yeah, life can be pretty busy.
I am sure pretty much that's a lot on your plate. Especially, just to be honest with you, I love leaders who are out there giving back to the community. And I know from our conversations, even at Sig Mosley Award, that you were out there and helping organizations and definitely also the community at large. Awesome. Well, thank you. So before we take a deep dive into your views and beliefs about organizational culture, I would love for my audience to get to know you a little better. So tell us a little bit about your very first job.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I was a techie. That's how I started off. I started working for a couple of Tata companies, Tata Electric. I was part of their R&D team, and then worked for Tata Consultancy Services as well. This was in the late 80s, early 90s. So, yeah, and then transitioned from there where I started my own company also in the tech space.
Gotcha. Awesome. Thank you. Um, so, how does an organizational culture influence your decision to invest in it?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Rohit. And, it is obviously not just investing in it. I have built a few companies in my history, and just building the right culture in the organization is very important. Uh, in the case of my current role as an investor, culture is definitely one of the biggest things that we look at. So we are investing, as I told you, in early stage tech companies.
Hmm.
So several times these companies have to go through transitions, go through pivots,
Yeah.
sort of reinvent themselves as new technology comes along, and so on and so forth. And the way a company is able to take care of that is driven a lot by the interaction between the teams, how they deal with their other stakeholders,
Yes.
or in short, the culture of the organization. So yes, that's definitely one of the biggest factors that we consider before we make an investment.
You're absolutely right. These, as you said, the early startup tech companies or any company in early stages would actually pivot so many times and will go through different transformations because it's growing, it's scaling, and it has to deal with all these new challenges.
Yeah.
Like the Edgar H. Sheehan, who's a notable authority on organizational culture, says, right? Organizational culture is really everything that the company is doing and learning from it based on its success on all the challenges that it does for external adaptation and internal integration, which is, like you said, whatever it does, how it works with other organizations, how it works with its partners, what it does to sell, and of course, internally, how does it organize itself to move forward?
Yeah, that's right.
Awesome. Um, have you ever chosen, or rather not chosen, a company when you wanted to invest in it because of the cultural red flags? And if you did, what were those?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's also one of the hardest things to evaluate, right? Because when you are looking at a company for investment, they obviously are trying to put their best foot forward. So
Yes.
we look for little signs. So we look for example, if there are co-founders, are the co-founders together coming to the meetings that we have with them as we are considering an investment,
Right.
and then how are they interacting with those co-founders? We like to also speak with some of the customers that they have and see, first of all, the length of the relationship and what kind of not just product wise but also uh, personal relationships they have with the customers. I think
Yes.
those are all important things. But I mean, the biggest thing, of course, is integrity, right? So integrity uh, is an element of culture which can really define success or failure for an organization. So uh, if there is even the slightest sign of lack of integrity, and we have seen that unfortunately in some of the companies we have
Mm.
evaluated, or a past record which uh, you know just totally disqualifies them. For instance, we had a company where the founder uh, had a sexual harassment case against him in a prior job, and
Mm.
he of course claimed that it was made up, trumped up. I mean, he used to work for a really large company, but
Mm.
so this was one of those things which we said, well, no, this is a red flag that we can't get over,
Mm.
so we didn't invest. We had another company where they tried to fudge a document, and even though they didn't need to do it, but
Yeah.
just to make themselves look better and better. And we found that out as part of our diligence, and we did not invest. Several times we do not invest when we see the interaction between the founders being little spotty.
Yes.
And if they're doing that when they are pitching for investment, I know that when things don't need to be nice between them, I mean, they're probably much harder, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, we definitely look at things like that.
That is so. Going back to what you said, the very first thing, culture is very hard to decipher. It takes time. You have to be involved. It's almost like anthropology. You have to be there. Actually, it is. You have to know how they're interacting with each other, how they're greeting each other, how they interact with their customers, and basically just that. And it's culture is basically all the most basic of assumptions. These are subconscious, they ingrained way of thinking. This is how they do things out here, and it's not easy to figure that out. Of
Little
course,
hard.
as a consulting company, this is something that I do, is to get into an understanding of running a workshop to understand what the organizational culture is, or by finding out what are those basic assumptions. And then, of course, we use that to figure out how the company can use that information to overcome the challenges that it faces. Now, the most important point that I saw, or actually, you nailed it. You've got such great points about personal relationship. I think the current world today is so complex, and it is growing ever increasing in complexity, that we cannot succeed without having better relationships. Edgar Sheehan talks about four kinds of relationships. The zero, where like the jailer and jailee, there's no trust, there's no relationship out there, right? The second one is, or number one is transactional business relationships. They're not really great. They're just, I'm here to do business with you, and then that's the end of it. But level two is what I think, and he also believes in is the fact that I trust you, you trust me. I've got your back and you've got my back. And that's the kind of relationships that we need to,
Exactly. Exactly.
personal relationships. So and I cannot believe anybody else other than, like, when I met you itself, it was such great to be able to talk to you. You were so warm and welcoming that, I can understand that this is how it's part of your secret success about those relationships.
Thank you.
So awesome. And quite importantly, the last one, integrity. I can't imagine this world. What It's better to be vulnerable rather than just trying to fudge things or trying to
Mhm.
show that face that doesn't really exist.
Yeah.
Think authenticity and integrity really important. So thank you for that answer, response. That's really great. Um, so startups often face challenges in preserving their cultures as they grow. What advice would you give founders to maintain a strong culture during that growth?
Yeah. So the startups that are, especially the ones that are successful, are usually bringing on senior leaders to support them with the growth, right? Uh, when they bring in senior leaders, they typically come with their own experiences,
Yes.
and they come in with their own sort of perspectives on what company culture should be. For instance, let's say that the founder has built a company culture of extremely closeness with all employees,
Mm.
and call it takes them out for, or they all go out for a team lunch once a week.
Mm.
Brings in a chief operating officer who's also their head of HR, comes in and says that person says, I got it, I'll take care of it. You go and help grow the business, uh, which is great. But then slowly the weekly becomes bi-weekly and then monthly, and then it stops completely, right?
Mm.
And oh yeah, well, we are spending a lot of money on this, etc., etc. Well, you know what? Culture doesn't have a price. So I think it's important that founders should think about how uh, adding on new people is going
Yes.
to impact culture. So first of all, make sure that there is a culture fit. Everyone understands and agrees
Yes.
with all the primary elements of the culture of the organization. And secondly, the founder should not give up their handle completely on culture, right?
Yes.
So that needs to be, obviously, there are certain things that a founder cannot give up ever, not at least for a very, very long time, right? That
Yeah.
includes um, making big sales. I don't care if they hire a head of sales, right? You have to be a part of it. The large sales engagements, founder has to be a part of it. Similarly with culture, right? I mean, bringing on the leadership, deciding who gets promoted and who does not,
Yeah.
who gets to come along for the ride.
Yeah.
Those are all things that the founder cannot delegate to anybody else. So I think the single biggest thing would be to uh, make sure that a founder is constantly engaged with building and maintaining the culture of the organization.
I love it. I love the constant part, the consistency part. And you're
Yeah.
right. The CEO has the mandate to, how do you say, to work with all different subcultures that exist in the organization.
Yeah.
And he or she is the one who's going to really be intentional. And you have to be intentional about that organizational culture. You cannot just let it be by chance. It's something which my recent client also mentioned, that you helped us really define the culture. You helped us to build that culture. You helped us to define that culture, because we had let it go by chance, let it be by chance,
Yeah.
whatever. So you have to be intentional. And I love the fact that its culture doesn't really have a price. You have to continue to do it, because, in my understanding, culture is a huge part of the success or sometimes demise of an organization. So great, great, thank you. Music to my ears. Everything you said, fantastic. Have you witnessed leadership significantly improve or damage a company's culture? And what lessons can we learn from that?
Yeah. No, I think culture is, of course, driven by leadership, right? It's the founders, the CEOs, the top execs in the organization that are defining and maintaining culture within the organization. um, so, most definitely, one of the good outcomes from a strong culture in an organization is loyalty, right? So, you're bringing in people who think alike,
Yes.
who have similar values, and they are staying with you. So what we have seen is, leaders that have allowed the culture of the organization to sort of disintegrate or not paying enough attention to it, they all of a sudden become sort of a stopping point for people, especially the best talent, to
Mm.
come and go. Because other than just sort of financial success, there is nothing else holding them together. So culture is a very important part
Yes.
of how you sort of define your organization. You have, obviously, what you're offering, what impact you're making on customers, obviously financial success, but also ultimately what is it that you stand for beyond just the product,
Yes.
with with each other, with your customers and major stakeholders. So yeah, I think that definitely is something that we have seen.
That is great. And you're right. Like, this leadership is the one who brings the culture. They have these primary mechanisms: what they observe, what they promote, how they're allocating these resources, how they allocate rewards and status, hire, excommunicate. All of this is how leaders. These are primary powerful ways of how leadership can build or embed the organizational culture. I love the fact that when you do work on the organization culture and create a positive culture, you're really increasing the engagement. And most importantly, what you said was loyalty. I love that fact, because a loyal, and it's not just, it's not compliance. It is more like, I am enrolled in your vision, Mr. Leader, or Miss, I mean,
Exactly.
I'm enrolled in the vision. I am committed to the vision, and we are gonna, and it's basically to really increase the intrinsic motivation of the employees. And
Okay.
that's where we will get the maximum output for the company. That's where we'll make the maximum value for the organization, for the other employees within the company, and the community at large, and the society. So great,
Yeah.
great, great, great response. Thank you. um as an investor, what role do you play in influencing the culture of the startup that you invest in?
I mean, I mean, as an investor, do we play influence in the culture? Well, I mean, I just want to make sure, as an investor, as a mentor, to make sure that there is a real thought given to culture. There is, and then it is what what suits the founder and the specific circumstances that they're working in. Um, for instance, if an organization is a smaller organization, they have to have a different cadence with
Yes.
how they interact, and sort of what they're building, and so on and so forth, and how they interact with their customers, with other stakeholders, and how they behave, how the processes that are in place. Whereas if it is a global organization, very different
Hmm.
situation, right? I mean, you got to figure out cultural differences, provide the training, cultural sensitivity,
Right.
uh, right, and
Yeah.
then teach them. So, I mean, yeah, of course, as an investor, one of the reasons why startups come to us, other than obviously the check, is uh, so we are able to provide them the support with growth. And one of the things that we do with these companies is usually meet them pretty often. I mean, usually at least once a month, but more often 2 or 3 times, maybe every week, a
Right.
month. um, and these guys, I mean, that's really what we emphasize, right? So my job as an investor or a board member or a mentor is to be a sounding board, right?
Right.
There is this person that is in our organization that is having trouble or creating mischief or being disrespectful, or
Hmm.
what do you think? And so my job is to tell them, listen, I mean, you got to, if you feel that this is a hard thing to fix, then you got to get rid of it as soon as possible, right?
True. Yeah.
If it is something that can be fixed, then here is how you go about doing it.
Right.
Figure out if the person in question is sufficiently coachable to sort of change their behavior, and so on and so forth.
Yes.
Right? So these are all things that's my job. I said, but am I going to tell them, oh no, what, you need to treat your customers in X, Y, or Z manner? No,
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that, because again, every company is very different.
No, truly, that is so important. And I
Yeah,
love the fact that you brought up even the answer response, like the coachable. Sig
yeah,
Mosley mentioned that to me during his interview with his episode with me, and he mentioned that I will not invest in a company whose leader is non-coachable. If he finds out the leadership cannot be coached, he just doesn't even say no, but yes to them, and it doesn't make sense. Because I share this same thing with even my daughter, that if you're not coachable, you're going to have a very hard time in everything that you do across life. So fantastic.
well, if you're a daughter, then she probably coaches you more than you coach her anyway.
Oh, you have no idea, sir. I think this is great. I don't know how you know this, but yes, my daughter, she's 15, and she does coach me a lot in a lot of things. And she's a great, they have great, amazing minds,
Oh yeah, of course, of
these
course.
kids. So I love it. I love interacting with my kid, and I get to learn a lot from her.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, sure.
All right. So, in your experience, do organizations with strong cultures tend to have a better long-term outcomes compared to those without?
Uh, yes, obviously the answer is yes, right? And why is that? So let's kind of explore why that is.
Right.
So you don't keep uh, employees and customers and investors around you for decades, uh, unless you are very clear about what you stand for beyond what you're building.
Mm.
I mean, integrity being one part of it, but also in general, culture
Mm.
and what are the values you stand for are very important.
Mm.
Because again, these employees and customers are to a degree staying there because of how well you're doing as a company or whatnot, but they're also around a lot because of what you stand for, your
Yes.
values, and the culture that you have built as part of your organization. So, yeah, I mean, if without strong cultures, you can expect a rotating door of people coming in and out,
Right.
and that's definitely not a recipe for long-term success.
Yeah.
But companies with strong, sound cultures definitely will have the elements at least in place to survive for a really long time and thrive.
Yeah. And like we talked about earlier, they have to be intentional and they have to be consistent.
Sure.
You
Yeah,
cannot drop the ball. So,
absolutely. Mhm.
um, and also it's something which just reminded me of my conversation with Gary Ridge in my recent podcast with him, and he talked about something which Charlie Maloff actually mentioned to him, that really culture is not a microwavable event. It's really a crock pot approach. It will take time, and so it's beyond our learning horizons as human beings, and so it takes time, and that's what is going to help to be consistent and take it forward, and you will see success for sure. Awesome. Um, what culture trends have you noticed in startups over the years, especially in the Atlanta ecosystem?
Yeah. So the big thing changes wise is that the world in general is getting more globalized. Atlanta has become much more of a melting pot of different cultures.
Hmm.
Uh, by that I mean a different kind of culture. But yeah, yes, but that is definitely the case.
Hmm.
And so the big thing that we see is probably more sensitivity towards different ways of thinking,
Yeah.
more tolerance of people who don't look like me, sort of attitude,
Yeah.
right? And definitely a much greater inclusiveness in general. So I think that's the single biggest thing.
Yeah.
Definitely, people have changed in the way they're interacting, obviously, with um, the proliferation of all the video, you know,
Yeah.
communication techniques similar to what we are doing right now, but also because of the pandemic and so on, which accelerated it. But
Yes.
yeah, I think these are all things that have completely transformed how we behave and how organizations are built. And in some ways, it makes it easier, but in some ways, from a culture perspective, for example, it makes it a lot harder
Yeah.
to build consistent culture when you have people, who may not have met at all or maybe met very rarely.
True. True.
So that is the biggest thing. I think there's a challenge to culture, but in general, I think that's how we are evolving as a society, and therefore, this is how culture is evolving as well.
Correct.
Yeah,
It's pretty awesome, like you mentioned, the increase in the tolerance, the increase in the acceptance of different cultures. It's
yeah,
really that the world, if you the word that is used is the culture competency. I know
yeah,
you and I come from different cultures, and we've been in so exposed to so many different cultures that I can bet you our culture competency scale is much higher. But in and what you're really saying is because of the way that the different cultures are colliding out here, or it's really melting pot of different cultures. It's the competency which is increasing, the culture competency, the tolerance level, the adaptability to how to work with different cultures.
exactly.
Is
Yeah, you said it well.
Thank you. Well, this was great. So this is time for now some rapid fire questions. What book do you recommend the most?
There are several, but the one that I read most recently and which I really like is a book called Mind Magic. by Dr. James Coty, Coty. Uh, it's a book which talks about how you can establish goals for yourself and using mostly meditative techniques. How do you kind of try to achieve those goals? Very powerful, very well said. Lots of simple steps to follow. So definitely one I would.
Wow, I'll definitely have to take this one down. I believe a lot in spirituality, and I believe that our roles as leaders is to really increase the not just the work situation, but really increase the capacity of our people. And
Yeah,
spirituality has got a lot to do with it, and our culture just it has a lot to offer that in that aspect.
yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. What's one thing that people would be surprised to know about you?
Yeah, I used to be a pretty serious chess player. I played national level chess in India, and so
Oh,
yeah, that's something that obviously after a while that was not what I wanted to do, but yeah, that's something that I was pretty good at. Still play quite.
very interesting. Has that helped you? I'm sure it has, but just to ask you, that must have helped you a lot in terms of running organizations and building or growing your companies.
For sure, yeah, yeah. It helps you uh, with strategic thinking. It helps you learn how to plan out your steps ahead of actually executing them. So just the way you think when you're playing chess, has a lot of positive impact on any kind of business.
All right, that's great. Thank you. And one last question is, how can our listeners connect with you?
Yeah, the easiest way is LinkedIn. So, Sid Mookerji, if you look me up, you'll very easily find me and connect me with me there and send me a message. I typically tend to respond to those messages, unless you're trying to sell me something, which then I may not. But other than that, be more than happy to. Also, as you know, I'm pretty active with Thai Atlanta. And so, for Atlanta based listeners of this podcast, if you came to a Thai event, then you'll probably see me there, and I'd love to connect with
Yeah, that's where I met you. And this has been a great conversation, Sid. It is absolute honor and my pleasure to host you. Thank you so much for your time and for most insightful conversation.
you. Thank you, Gaurav. Very nice to go through this. Thank you.
Thank you.